Inspired Pilot Podcast, episode 11.
You don't have to be special. You don't have to be elite. You don't have to be even all that talented. You don't have to be rich. If you want to do something, you've just got to work hard, try hard, and don't give up.
Welcome to the Inspired Pilot Podcast. Inspiring stories from inspiring pilots from around the world. Now, here is your host, Marvin Robinson.
Okay, welcome to the Inspired Pilot Podcast. This is Marvin Robinson, and I'm delighted to introduce today's featured inspiring pilot, Lauren Richardson. Welcome, Lauren, to the show. Are you ready to inspire today?
Absolutely, Marvin. Great to be on.
Fantastic. Okay, Lauren Richardson has been flying since she waved goodbye to her teens and is enjoying her 5th season of flying aerobatics, along with her 3rd season as a display pilot. Self-funded, Lauren has flying in her blood as she's now living her dream her younger self conjured up. It's clear that she has talent alongside the passion as she's won many competitions, including the British Female Aerobatic Champion of 2012. Lauren never stops pursuing her dreams as she admits she's still got further to go and is always finding new ways to fall in love with flying every single day. Okay, I've given our listeners, the Inspired Pilots, just a little overview, Lauren. We definitely will go into your journey, but before that, so we can get to know you a little bit more, can you tell us a little bit about yourself personally? Are you where you're from? And briefly give us an overview of what you're doing aviation-wise now.
Yeah, well, I'm currently 27 years old. I started flying when I was 19, 20. I live in Gloucestershire in the UK, where I work during the day making wooden propellers for aircraft. We design and make fantastic pieces of artwork for propelling World War I fighters to stunt machines and racers like mine. I fly my own little pit special that I bought a few years ago at shows across the country throughout the summer. Thankfully, the season hasn't yet started, so I'm still kind of relaxing and kind of working on building up a new show routine for the year, which is quite challenging. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Fantastic, good stuff. It sounds like you've got a busy year ahead of you. Today, Lauren, you are our featured inspiring pilot, and every journey does have to start somewhere. So can you tell us the story of how you first got involved with flying and wanted to be a pilot?
Well, I guess I always wanted to fly since I was probably about 10 or 11. I used to watch the airliners going over the house when I was a kid. None of my family have ever flown, so it's all kind of a bit bizarre, because most pilots doing this kind of thing have come from a family full of aviators, and I'm the only one in the family actually, which is quite unusual. But yeah, as a kid, I always wanted to fly. I wanted to go commercial and fly the airliners until I sort of sat and thought about it for a bit and realised that probably wasn't going to be the lifestyle for me. So I got into engineering instead. I've always been good with my hands, always enjoyed making things, putting things together, designing things. I've always been a very hands-on type of person. And I went off at 16 and did an engineering apprenticeship, during which time I kind of saved every bit of spare money I had. And by the time I kind of reached 19, 20, I had enough money to go to my local flying school and have lessons to get my license. And that's what I did. I basically spent, I think it was about 3 months. I just did as many lessons as I could, as close to each other as I could. So I was learning fast and just enjoying the process, and learnt to fly by the time I was kind of 20, 21. And that's kind of where it all came from. That's where it all started. And it's all gone a bit mad ever since. And the world has been turned upside down when I kind of started getting into aerobatics after getting bored with flying for expensive cups of tea, which is really what it boiled down to. Started doing aeros after a first experience in a 2-seat pit special, actually, just because I fancied having a go.
Where did you learn to fly? What school?
I learned to fly at RAF Halton, which is it's an RAF. It's not an RAF airfield anymore, but they have a flying club there on a grass strip. I lived at the end of the runway, and they very kindly let me in as a civilian because I was a local. So I learned to fly off of the grass at Halton in Buckinghamshire.
Fantastic. challenges, going back to when you were learning to fly. So learning to fly definitely has its own challenges, and no more so than when you're learning. So thinking about someone thinking about learning to fly, or someone currently during their training, can you think back? Obviously you're upside down and all sorts of attitudes at the moment, but it hasn't always been like that. Can you think back to a time when you were learning to fly? What did you find challenging, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, all of it, actually.
All of it.
It's hard. I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, I actually learned to fly before I learned to. Actually, it wasn't before. But it was only just after I'd learned to drive. I've been riding motorbikes since the age of 16, and didn't learn to drive until I was 19, I think, or maybe even 20. So it was quite fresh in my mind, which might have helped actually, because the whole mentality towards learning to control a completely alien kind of bit of machinery probably did help actually. But yeah, the whole learning to fly thing, the biggest challenges I think are kind of psychology, because you so often go up and feel like you're not getting anywhere, or you're not learning, or you feel a bit stupid because you're just not getting it, and just continuing to push and keep working at it past those difficult psychological moments can be quite challenging. And I think that's true for much in life, but very true in the air, because you tend to think, well, if I can't do this and I mess up, I'm probably going to end up kind of crashing the aeroplane or something. But you just gotta kind of keep pushing, being willing to make small mistakes and learn from them. And I think, yeah, it's very much a head thing, because anyone can do it. It's not actually that difficult, but just the learning is the challenge. The learning itself, I'd say.
Was there anything, one particular item which you found more difficult than others, or was there one significant thing? I think for myself, it was navigation, and just putting it all together at the same time. You're like, what, you want me to navigate as well as fly this aircraft and talk to people on the radio? Was there anything in particular for you?
Yeah, multitasking has never really been. I know they say women can multitask, but I'm not necessarily that great at it myself. Like the whole looking at the map and looking out the window and looking at the instruments and doing everything and talking and everything else, like you say, everything all at the same time. It's very easy to kind of get muddled, and I think even now I find navigating with a map is really quite hard. Partly because there's not really enough room to kind of use the damn thing in the pits, but actually it's like you're trying to work out where you are from a little squiggle on that thing, and you're traveling at 100 mile an hour. I'd say I probably agree with you actually. The navigation is definitely not the easiest thing in the world.
Fantastic. Okay, you've mentioned your beloved Pit Special there. Let's talk about aircraft types. So how many different aircraft types have you flown, and what aircraft, dare I ask, is the closest to your heart, and why?
Oh God, how many? That's a very, very good question. It's one of those I get asked quite a lot, and I still haven't gone through my logbook and checked the answer to. I guess it's probably around 20 different types now. Some of which I've just been kind of given the chance to have a fly as a passenger, really, because I think that tends to be what happens with the more exotic types. I mean, the things like the Stearman and the Spartan Executive, which, if any of your listeners don't know what a Spartan Executive looks like, Google it. It's a beautiful, gorgeous wartime kind of. It was the biz jet of the era of the 30s. It's an absolutely beautiful aeroplane. I've been very privileged to have been allowed to go in the only two outside of the States. Fantastic aeroplanes. I love them to bits. But I've flown quite a few different aerobatic types, obviously. I mean, that's kind of where my skills and my heart lies. I'm quite lucky to be able to go and sort of help other people kind of learn. So I get to sit in some quite cool stuff sometimes, and sort of sit in the front and just feel slightly sick as they're trying to learn to roll or whatever it is, which is fine. So I've flown things like extras and 𝗂𝗍, Super Decathlon, 𝗣𝗶𝗍, Slingsby Firefly, all that kind of stuff. I've had a go in most of them. I've also been quite privileged to fly my partner's single-seat home-built biplane. He built himself from scratch, the 𝗣𝗶𝗀𝗆𝗁𝗀, and I think he was quite brave, really, in letting me out in his little, his pride and joy. He spent 8 years building this thing, and he let me have a go in it, and I think that was quite brave of him.
That must be love. It's got to be, right?
Yeah. It's a lovely little aeroplane, actually, as well. So, but I'd say, obviously, for me, my heart really does lie with the Pit Special, though. I know I'm biased because I own one, but there's just nothing quite like flying one. It's so unique, so full of character, such fun, and it's just a fantastic airplane to fly, and I just love it to bits.
I read that your aircraft is modified. Can you give us a sort of overview of what modifications?
Yeah, it was built in the early 80s as a machine designed for competition. And the guys that built it were aiming to be able to compete with the monoplanes that were then starting to come in, which are just, a monoplane is always going to be higher performing than a biplane these days. It's just the way of it. So what they actually did was they modified most of the controls to be, oversized. They made it stronger. And they just tried to make it as competitive as possible. So it's got larger ailerons than standard, which means it rolls fantastically fast. It rolls significantly faster than a stock one. It's quite something. It's got an oversized elevator with different aerodynamic controls on it as well, and an oversized rudder. So it's a very, very, very maneuverable aeroplane. It's also got no incidents on the bottom wing, so it's a completely unstable aircraft as well, which is great for aerobatics, not so great for kind of when you're just flying along and you want to let go and fiddle with a map. It will just go off on its own. It will just it's 2 seconds, it will be starting to roll one way or the other, and you can't predict which. You can't let go of the bloody thing. It's just a bit of a handful, I suppose, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It's a fantastic machine, and it does me very, very well.
I can hear your passion there. I can imagine like looking down at that map that you were talking about earlier, and then by the time you look up, you're inverted or knife edged or something like that. That's kind of interesting.
Sometimes no, it's not quite that bad, but it's the GPS is the saviour of the day, I must say.
Okay, so you passed your PPL. Then what happened there? Can you take us through from your PPL through to where you are now?
Yeah, that's pretty much straight after I finished my PPL. I remember where I was living. I was just about to move. I moved to North Wales for a couple of years, and we were actually in the middle of moving whilst I was finishing my license. And I can remember passing my skills test and going home that same day and handing over the keys to the house and going driving to Wales. It was that ridiculous in terms of like the timings. Unfortunately, after that, I kind of ran out of money and did 3 or 4 flights. Took my mum flying, which was another horrendous story that if anyone ever asked me about in the pub, it's quite amusing.
I'll save that one.
She's not good at flying, let's put it that way. She's absolutely terrified, but there we go. Yeah, so I took various members of my family for a quick flight and went a few places, and then basically stopped after I moved because I ran out of funds, really, which was a bit sad. So I had about a year and a half where I just didn't fly at all.
Well, how did you sort of overcome, obviously that would be dramatic. I think I had a 2-year break, and that sort of killed me. So how did you sort of occupy yourself flying wise? Did you still sort of keep your nose in, sort of even if just virtually?
Well, not really, to be honest. I went off when I moved to Wales. I actually I was big into rock climbing, and I did an awful lot in the outdoors, and my focus was really in the mountains and doing different things like that. But yeah, you can't kind of resist it for very long, I must admit. And after I'd done a bit more did a bit of contracting and consultation work, and had a bit of money left over, and decided to go and have a go, just to have a go in one of these 2-seat aerobatic things that people were flying around, mad biplane looking things. Called the Pit Special. So I went off and sort of had a go and used that as my reintroduction to flying, which probably sounds like it was a bit in at the deep end. I'm a year and a half off and then jump into a pits after only doing like 60 hours in total. But yeah, that is actually what I did.
It sounds like the equivalent of doing a bomb in the swimming pool. That does. It's sort of like, hey, a big running jump and then 2 feet tucked up. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually intend kind of doing any more than just one flight in that aeroplane. I just wanted to have a go to say I had a go in one. Really, it was like I didn't even want the guy to turn it upside down. I was like, nope, I just want to go flying. I don't want to do anything stupid. I was terrified of the concept of going upside down. Terrified of the concept of doing any aerobatics, and I was absolutely adamant that I did not want to do anything, and I did not want to be subjected to any of that, and I just wanted to sort of have a fly around in this machine. Anyway, needless to say, he convinced me to at least do a loop. And my life changed really at that point, and I became an awful lot poorer.
Was it a case of like coming up in the loop, going at the top, going no, 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 and coming back down? Yes, 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 that was great.
Yeah, it was more of a kind of deadly silence, I think, over the top. I was just kind of, craning my head upwards and staring down at the green through the top of the canopy, and it was just like, whoa, what's going on? This is so weird. But it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And even now, I'd say that the joy of that kind of changed perspective, it hasn't left. I still feel it.
I've looked at some of your videos on YouTube. What stands out to me is that you're just so passionate. It's like, this hasn't got boring for you yet. You're just loving every second. And it's like you literally are, like I said in the bio, living your dream. So lovely thing to see from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, it never was the dream. It kind of became the dream that kind of instant, which was a bit surreal, really. I mean, a lot of people in this industry have sort of like dreamed of being this kind. A lot of people dream about being a stunt pilot or whatever, and it's like their childhood thing. It wasn't for me at all, and it just kind of it was kind of thrust upon me in a way. But it was one of those things. They say that the first flight is like your first shot, or your first hit of a drug like heroin or something. And you become a junkie, you become addicted to it, and it's very much like that. Probably more expensive as well, actually, but yeah, and it very much was something that just grabbed me, and I started having lessons, and it just took an even firmer hold, really. The novelty never wore off.
So you literally had that experience in the twin seat pits, and then sort of what happened there? You started doing lessons and you got current again.
Yeah. So I did my tailwheel and complex aircraft conversion on the Pitts S2A. It was straight in there. I often get people asking me the question, what's the best way of getting into flying a Pitts? What's the best, kind of steps to go through? Should I go and do a tailwheel conversion in a cub or whatever, or go and learn to fly aerobatics in something simple like a super decathlon, and then work my way up to it? And my answer is no. Just if you want to do it, just go straight for it. I did. There's no reason why you can't just go and learn in one of those airplanes, be it an extra, be it a Pitts special, whatever. If that's what you want to do, they are fantastic airplanes for teaching people how to fly properly. The Pitts in itself is quite a handful. It's got quite a reputation for being very difficult to fly, and especially very difficult to land. It's got that kind of stigma attached to it. A lot of people are very scared of these airplanes and think they're horrendously dangerous. They're not horrendously dangerous. Yes, there are a lot of accidents in them, but that's mainly due to people being a little bit complacent or just not quite ready for what they're doing. But like anything, if you work up to it and just get used to it and respect the machine, they're very, very capable, very easy to handle aeroplanes, I would say. So yeah, I started doing lessons, just learning basic aerobatics in the S2A, and eventually my instructor kind of convinced me to go over to one of the British Aerobatic Association's competitions, a beginners competition. So it was, designed for people like me who had not really done anything but wanted to see what it was all about, and to go and fly in front of some people and be told how rubbish I was, really.
I'm sure you didn't believe that, but yeah, carry on.
Oh no, it's very true. There are two different types of aerobatic flying. There are several different types of aerobatic flying, but in my world there are two different types. You've got competition flying and you've got airshow flying. Competition flying, you go to fly in front of your mates who tell you you're rubbish. Airshow flying, you go and fly in front of a bunch of strangers who tell you you're amazing, even if you are rubbish. So
let me think which one I prefer.
I love both in equal well, yeah, I love both. The discipline and the skill that competition flying teaches you is second to none. You don't learn to fly with precision unless you're forced to. You tend to. You can definitely tell the difference between show pilots who have done competition type stuff and those that haven't. There's a very different kind of level of style. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but there's a definite style difference. I mean, people who watch my flying, I tend to try to steer my display flying away from the competition style and keep it more sort of flowing and natural. But the precision of the crisp lines and getting the angles right, and the point rolls, keeping them all accurate, that's very important to me, is to not lose that kind of crisp precision that I've been forced to learn, really. So I think competition flying is fantastic. Being told, you come back down and given your score sheet, and it's how many points could they knock off for mistakes. This is literally how it's judged, and so it can be a bit depressing. And there's nothing more frustrating than coming fourth, at sort of every competition in during the year by like half a point or something, which did happen to me one year. It was very annoying.
Very annoying. And go back to that first competition then. So your instructors sort of said, come on, Lauren, let's go. You can do it. So you've turned up. Can you remember your routine and how did you get on that first competition?
I can't really remember what it was. I know the beginners sequences were, and they still are. I think it's a very short 5-figure sequence. So it certainly included a basic slow roll, an aileron roll, whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty sure it had a stall turn in there, a loop, and something else that I can't, maybe a half Cuban or something. So it's 5 kind of your classic basic figures, really. And you just have to, the skill really is in tying them together and keeping it within the, because competitions are judged in a 1 kilometer square box. So you have to keep this sequence within that 1 kilometer square, which actually is quite hard. Especially if it's windy, because if you consider, if it's a bit breezy on the ground at 2,000-3,000 feet, it can be very, very challenging.
Spatial awareness wise, how do you sort of know where that box is? Have they got like pointers, markers, and you sort of coming in and out of the box, or how do you do it? What's your secret?
It's tough. Some venues are much easier than others to fly. If you're at a venue where the box edge is marked by a nice big tarmac runway, that tends to be really quite straightforward. Whereas if you're somewhere where the box is actually across some fields that all the lines are at some random angle, of which there are a couple of competition venues, and the only marker you've got is a big orange marker where the judges are sitting, you've got to just kind of remember what it all kind of looks like. That's hard. That's hard. And having flying over an airfield where there are 2 tarmac runways at different angles is also a bit of a pain in the butt, to be honest, because it's so very easy to get a little bit disorientated and choose the wrong one, and then orientate yourself on the wrong runway and score 0 for every figure after that point because you're off heading. That has happened. I think I did it at one competition, but only for a couple of figures, and then realised, but I was in the lead until I did that, which was again quite annoying. But there we go.
That's the school of hard knocks, isn't it? I'm sure once you've done that, you don't want to do that again.
No, you've got to be willing to make mistakes, and you've got to be willing to come back down and see big fat zeros on your score sheet and not be bothered by it. Not have your confidence knocked, because it happens to everyone. It's if you never do it, it's just you haven't done it yet, basically.
It's just a case of when, right?
Oh, for sure. Sure.
So take us back up to, I mentioned in the bio, British Female Aerobatic Champion 2012. So take us up to that point, and how was that year for you? You must have been going for it. Yeah,
it was a busy year. I mean, 2014, I didn't compete actually. 2013, I didn't do very many. But 2012 was probably my busiest competition year. I think I did all of them, or all but one or something. There tend to be 6 or 7 competitions at each level during the year, and I think I flew all of them, and I did pretty well at all of them. I didn't actually win any individual competition that year, which was frustrating, but I did come 2nd and 3rd and was pretty consistent all across the board.
So it's literally like a point system. So
yeah, totally. So at the end of the year, kind of there's like a league ranking type thing. And I won on the basis of just being consistency across the year, really.
Cool. Don't let anything take away. That sounds still awesome. It's like you still have to put the work in and be consistent. I think with most things in life and in general, consistency will always get you where you need to go.
Oh, for sure. And it's really important, I think, just to kind of maintain where you're going. And I think in aviation in general, too many people don't really kind of maintain their goals or maintain their level sometimes. And just, you know, the hardest part is just keeping going and just keeping on top of everything, especially with aerobatic flying. You tend to you need to maintain certainly a level of G tolerance, as well as just kind of generally being able to do it. And I can remember I've had a couple of breaks of a couple of months, and you get out of the airplane. I mean, this winter the airplane we had a bit of a winter overhaul, so I didn't fly it for, I think it was about 3 months. And the first flight after that 3 months, made myself feel sick as a dog. It was awful.
Wow, read all about it. Lauren Richardson feels sick.
That happens quite often, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, usually through my sheer pig-headedness. My last flight, I felt quite ill afterwards, actually, because I've been trying a few new things and a few new manoeuvres that I want to throw into some display sequences that I may or may not be doing this year. Because one of them I was sort of getting there with, and the other one not really getting it where I wanted to be. So of course I just kept going. I'll have another go. I'll have another go. I'll have another go. And of course it gets worse and worse and worse. And it's like one more. And it's like, oh no, that was just too much. And yeah, I felt pretty rough after that. But
that's really an eye opener. That is, Lauren.
My own stupidity, really. You know when you should stop, but you're just too stubborn to let it lie. Yeah, that's usually the downfall. But that only, you know, during the display season, that it doesn't happen. I don't push myself on a display day to be feeling ill, because you just can't afford to do that. I mean, when I'm rehearsing, when I'm practicing, when I'm trying new stuff, I'm high. I am very high. So if anything goes wrong, there's absolutely no problem. You've got plenty of time and height to deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you're flying at a show, you just don't have that margin. So, you know, show time is a very different kettle of fish. If I'm feeling ill after a display sequence, then something needs looking at, because I've been. It's not a good place to be, really.
Yeah, not really, no. And how do you sort of motivate yourself? You just mentioned there that when you're trying something new. So what motivates you? How do you keep pushing the boundaries and get better? Do you have mentors or?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of being mentored by a couple of very, very good, you know, top pilots. A chap called Mark Jeffries, who's he's a former British Aerobatic Champion multiple times over, and he's an absolute kind of international superstar. And for a long time I was based at his airfield, and he used to kind of watch me do stuff and sort of give me ideas and pointers and guidance. And he's been very helpful. I've flown in his 2-seat extra a few times with him and learned various bits and pieces as well, which has been really good. And just recently I've had Steve Jones kind of watching me fly in some of my display sequences and just kind of giving me tips and advice, which is all fantastic, and it's really good. But other than that, I watch others. I mean, there are other people on the display circuit that, you know, I go and watch what they're doing and think, wonder if my aeroplane can do that, or yeah, my aeroplane can definitely do that. That looked really cool. I want to go and learn to do that and put that in and start doing things like that. And also online, watching some of the guys in America and the sort of stuff that they're doing, just the way they make things flow and the way they make the smoke make fantastic shapes and stuff. And I'm just constantly trying to think, well, if I was watching, what would I want to see? You know, what kind of stuff? If I'm trying to take pictures, what looks really cool for the photographers? You know, what do I want to see? What do I want to do? What inspires me when I watch other people? And I'm quite big on trying to bring other people's influences into my flying. I mean, I've got my own specific style, which is quite kind of controlled and flowing. So I'm not big into sort of gyroscopic tumbling type maneuvers. It's just not my thing. But I'm very, very keen on just putting the aeroplane in the right place for people to be able to see what's going on. So it's all about being low and close and precise, and just then bringing in whatever influences I can to make more interesting stuff happen in that kind of style. And that's kind of where I go. I take ideas from people. I kind of periodically have a kind of bit of an ask what people want to see on Twitter or on Facebook and stuff. There are quite a few people that follow me, and you get some of the enthusiasts say, "Oh, we'd love to see this," or, you know, we've not seen anyone do that for a while, or they've taken inspiration from some of the jets and can you do stuff like that? And sometimes you get the odd kind of really stupid sounding thing that you think, I wonder. and it can turn out to be something that then ends up looking amazing and becomes a stock figure. So yeah, I basically cheat. I use other people.
Well, there you go. You can just take and then add your own spin to it. So it sounds good. Also, it's like, has everything been done before in terms of what the aircraft can actually do, and you just have to be creative with it? Or are there some moves that you'll do by yourself practicing and you go, bloody hell, I've never seen that before? Or, what's going on? I can imagine people have been going upside down for a long time, for many years. And has every potential move been done yet? Or is there still something out there?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've flown some stuff that's never ever been done before and will never ever be done again.
Even by yourself?
Be able to do it again because I've no idea what was happening. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 Special is the classic aerobatic aeroplane. When you think, if you talk to someone, grab someone off the street and say, think about if you think about stunt flying, what kind of airplane do you picture? And everyone pictures the kind of the barnstorming biplane and the pits of the classic pits of the 70s, 80s, 90s kind of era. Yeah. So it's a little bit, I'm not flying the most modern machine. I'm not flying a carbon fiber winged monoplane like an Extra or a Sukhoi or anything like that. I'm flying a classic 80s, 90s Aerobat. So yeah, pretty much most things will have been done by someone. The skill is in building sequences that haven't been done before. So it might be tying 2 or 3 different maneuvers together, even merging them together sometimes into stuff that just looks a bit different, or just doing stuff better than other people. That's the other way of looking at it. You see someone doing a fantastic kind of stall turny tumbling thing and thinking, well, it was good, but I can do it better. So it's hard. I mean, there's not an awful lot that you can go off and go, wow, I've suddenly thought of something that no one else has done before, because everyone has done it. It's been around for such a long time. But yeah, there's never going to be an end to it really either. So there'll always be new innovations, and there'll always be stuff happening that you've no idea what you actually did. and
I like that.
Annoying.
So I guess you're just limited by your own creativity then.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's total freedom really. I mean, you're flying. You've got free in a 3D space. You're flying. If anything you can kind of imagine in your dreams, you can pretty much make the airplane do it. Obviously, you're limited by engine power, you're limited by aerodynamics, but even some of the laws of physics you can break on occasion, which is always fun.
That sounds good. Okay, tell us about your current flying. What are you excited about right now?
Well, I've just had my display authorization upgraded again, although the paperwork hasn't come through yet, but it will. So that means I'm now free to add a whole new plethora of types of maneuvers to my display sequences. So I'm doing a lot of playing with new stuff, more gyroscopic key type influenced type maneuvers, which I haven't really been doing before. I mean, I've flown a lot of this stuff for fun in the past, things like torque rolls and tail slides. So take the tail slide where you go straight up and then you come straight back down backwards and flop out of it.
Yeah.
I loved them. The first time I ever did one, it was the scariest thing I'd ever done in my life. It was ridiculous. I was absolutely terrified, and the whole thought of I'm going to actually go up here and what the hell's going to happen, and it was so scary. I was laughing like a hysterical lunatic afterwards. It was just mad, and I've been a bit addicted to them ever since. There's such a violent action. It's the most violent thing the aeroplane can do, I think.
It's almost unnatural, isn't it? It's like,
oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I made a little bit of video recently where I tied some ribbon to the aerobatic sight on the wing strut. And the video is fantastic because you watch it and the ribbon goes completely the wrong way.
I saw that video and I actually laughed out loud with your little scream in there. I thought that was hilarious.
Completely involuntary. That wasn't put on. That was probably the longest slide I'd made the aeroplane do. I think we probably went a couple of 100 feet backwards, which it was going fast when it came out. It was like whoomph. It's like being hit in the back with a phone book. It was a serious slide that, but it was just so much fun. So I'll be throwing that kind of fun stuff. I'm just looking forward to building a sequence that's new and that I'm going to be laughing whilst flying through, really. It's like if I'm making myself grin while I'm flying, I'm usually putting on a good performance. So I'm just really looking forward to enjoying it more than ever, really, I suppose. It's probably the main thing.
So you've got your upgraded license, so you can do some even more crazy things. The season's just starting, you mentioned. So where are you going to be this year?
Oh, I'm all over the place this year. I mean, my first show is in less than a month, actually, at the drag racing at 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm part of the what is it, the Festival of Power or something, which is quite cool. The cars will be going faster than I will, which is always quite weird. But and then after that, I'm on to the Airshow circuit main, which is great. So I'm starting the season with the first UK Airshow of the season, which is Abingdon, and then I'm off to places like Throckmorton, Welshpool, and some of the bigger shows. Hopefully, I haven't been confirmed for, like Shoreham and. Oh God, my mind's gone blank. But I've got kind of 15 or 16 shows booked on my calendar. Little Gransden, Seething, Western-super-Mare, big seafront air show. They're always fun flying over.
Yeah, that's not. I've been there myself. Yeah.
Probably Real again, another seafront one, which I like. I really like the seafront shows. There's something really quite weird and cool about flying over the beach. The wind isn't so fun. You tend to get some really weird kind of onshore, offshore wind stuff going on, which messes with you flying a little bit. But I remember flying at 𝗜𝗍𝗀𝗏𝗏 last year, and there were something like 200,000 people lining the seafront watching the show. It was properly like, wow, that's a lot of people. And you're kind of flying up and down. And I had a Mexican wave going on. I just had this mad idea. I said to the commentators, look, when I'm on my last couple of passes, can you just get them to start, set up this Mexican wave? So I had 200,000 people doing a Mexican wave up and down the seafront.
Oh, fantastic. Did you actually look out the window and go, hey, they're doing it?
I didn't see it because I was flying a knife edge pass at 100 feet at the time. So
okay, you're forgiven.
And it was a bit bumpy, so I was kind of like just concentrating on not kind of crashing into the sea, really. But I watched some of the footage from my onboard cameras afterwards, and you can see it kind of, and it's like wow, that was really cool.
That is kind of cool. I love the audience participation there.
Yeah.
For a show, how do you sort of prepare yourself? Headspace or mentally, as it were.
Yeah, it depends on the show. Most of them, because there are two different ways of doing a show. Some air shows are at airfields, so you tend to fly in beforehand and land and have a briefing and a cup of tea and everything else. And I tend to just go off and find my own little space. I usually go and hide in the toilet, actually, because it's the only place people can't get to you. If I, for the last sort of 15 minutes before I fly, I'll just go and lock myself in a loo somewhere or something, because then no one can mess with my head.
Yeah.
Which is probably it's one technique, I suppose. It's probably quite unusual, but I thought I just need to pop to the loo. It's been gone a long time, crikey.
You're all right.
Yeah, it's happened. Yeah, I'm fine. Just leave me alone.
So you're in your own space, you get focused.
Yeah, I tend to try and, at least for sort of 10, 15 minutes before. Because I do a lot of talking to the crowds, and when you've landed at an airfield where you've got and stuff going on, it's very hard sometimes to get yourself into that zone where you need to be. I don't really do a lot of pilots do the walkthrough thing.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah, I do a competition, very, very important, but a lot of my show flying is either a sequence that I've flown so often that it's kind of ingrained, or I'm kind of ad-libbing a little bit and sort of changing things around because the wind's in a funny direction, or it's a slightly differently shaped display area or whatever, and I might be kind of sort of changing things around as I'm flying, but those decisions tend to be made actually whilst I'm in the air. I might be adding a figure because the wind's blown me into a weird place, or missing one out because I'm a bit low, or whatever, and that tends to happen a lot. So I don't do so many of the walkthroughs in public at air shows. It does cut down the number of embarrassing photos that tend to be posted online as well, actually, I find.
Exactly.
But certainly at competition, competition is a different ball game, because you can't make a mistake. You can't just, I've forgotten to do a roll here. I'll do another couple in the next bit. You just can't do that. So at competition, I'll disappear for an hour before my flight, and just leave me alone. I can't deal with talking to anyone whilst I'm preparing for that, and I'll be walking the sequence through over and over and over again, doing the stupid dance and everything else. But I don't tend to do that at shows so much, just because I guess it's just, in some ways there's less pressure at an air show. In some ways there's a lot more, but in some ways the actual sort of the flying side I find is a little bit less pressure. So it's a bit easier.
And what about like camaraderie between fellow pilots at the air shows? Do you guys sort of get a chance to hang out and swap tool stories, or was it a case of just stay focused, do what you got to do? What's it like on the road, as it were?
Oh, again, it depends on the show. I mean, I mentioned there were two types of air show, and one's where you land, but there's also the ones where you don't land, which we do quite a lot of. Certainly the seafront air shows, you can't land on the sea. So you tend to be based from somewhere. I mean, for Western-super-Mare, I will be flying from my home airfield. I won't be landing anywhere. I'll just fly and go back. So you don't see anyone. You don't speak to anyone. You know, you're in your own. You're on your own, and it's quite a solitary exercise in some cases. I mean, last year I flew to the 𝗟𝗶𝗴𝗃 show from Northampton Sywell, where I was manning the company stand at the LAA rally, as it happened. Same with busy weekend that was.
Yeah.
I got off and I flew off to, I think it was Sleip Airfield, and then did the show from there and then flew back again. So I was basically on my own for like 3 hours each day, just flying. So you're in your own kind of little world, I guess, because you can start going a little bit mad sometimes, but it's all good, you know, it all helps. I tend to listen to music sometimes on transit flights just to kind of, I don't know, keep my head in a good place. And I find that does help, because there's nothing worse than sort of sitting for an hour and a half in a pit special when your feet are going numb and you're thinking, oh God, how am I going to fly a sequence? I can't feel my toes. But you learn to deal with it. It's just one of those things. But in terms of when you are at a show with and you're landing, I mean, I love doing those. I love doing air shows where that's the only show I'm doing that day, and it's at an airfield. So I can go in, I can land in the morning, I can have some breakfast, I can have a cup of tea or whatever, and I can chat to people and we all talk. I mean, there is a lot of camaraderie between pilots, and there's a lot of rivalry as well. I mean, the solo aerobatic pilots on the circuit, we're all kind of competing for the same business in many ways.
Yeah.
Which, so there's some rivalry there, but everyone overwhelmingly is very positive and supportive. And if anything goes wrong, they'll all jump to help you. And it's just, it's fantastic. I've got some very, very good friends on the circuit. I mean, some good friends of mine are people I never dreamed I'd even meet. These are kind of the rock stars of the airshow world, and they're now people I consider to be friends. And they're just fantastic people. So a big, I have to say, being paid to go and fly and do kind of stunts in front of big crowds of people over amazing airfields, and then go and sort of like have cups of tea with your heroes. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Do you manage to stay cool as well when you're in front of these guys, these heroes? It's not. I'm not really a hero. I'm not really a stars in your eyes kind of person. But I do have an awful lot of respect for you go some of the guys who are flying the Spitfires and the Messerschmitts and things like that, and the big warbirds. It's the level of experience and the skills these guys have. It's just fantastic. So I take every opportunity I can to talk to them and try and get as much advice and guidance and help as I can from them, because I'm only a kind of newbie really to it all, and they're always overwhelmingly friendly and helpful, and it's just fantastic to be able to go and sort of say, oh, I'm having some problems with this, I'm a bit worried and everything else, and just have someone take you to one side and give you some tips and guidance and just calm you down, who genuinely knows what they're talking about. And it's fantastic, I must say. It is. Yeah, the beauty of the aviation industry, it's very small, but everyone sort of, I guess it's that common respect that everyone knows what's involved and what we're all up against, and especially with you guys doing the aerobatics and stuff, it must be pretty bonkers. Oh, for sure. It's quite a unique world, I suppose. There are very few of us doing it. There are not many show pilots at all in the world. We all kind of know what each other's going through, and it's like, if you've had a particularly rough transit flight, we're just like, oh yeah, right, get over it, it's just showtime. It's just great. It does help. It definitely helps. That's awesome. And looking on your website, what stood out to me was the weddings and the wedding displays. That's I thought, wow, I would have took you up on that if I knew about that at the time. Oh, you can always renew your vows or something. Ah, okay, good idea. Or have a big birthday party or something. It's not just weddings, you see. But yeah,
Yeah, the weddings thing. I love doing weddings. They're great. Get to draw smoke hearts for newlyweds. I mean, how cool is that? And you get them waving at you, and you send them the video afterwards, and it's just like, and they get to see themselves from the aeroplane. It's just like, yeah. I mean, how cool is that?
I'm assuming these kind of things could be anywhere at any venue, so you would have to work with local noise abatement and stuff. What do you have to take into consideration?
It's not too bad, actually. I mean, basically, with a private display, it's very, very easy because I do all the hard stuff. I act as the display director. I do all the paperwork and everything else because we have to talk to the CAA and get various expensive permissions and bits of paper, ridiculously expensive sometimes, but it's not overly difficult, and it's just part of my job, really. So what I tend to do when people approach me about doing an event or a wedding or something, I just talk to them, find out where they are. There are limits on where we can do them. For instance, I couldn't display over a city or a big town or anything like that. It has to be a nice open space.
Yeah.
Because if the engine stops, you don't want to be kind of hitting a school or whatever. That would be very, very bad news.
A puppy sanctuary or something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, could you imagine? It would be horrendous. So yeah, it has to be over a kind of relatively clear area. But a lot of wedding venues are out in the countryside in beautiful parts of the country and tend to not be a problem at all. And heights-wise, we get the CAA to sign off a low-flying exemption, so I can fly lower than the law legally allows normally. Because, believe it or not, you can pay the CAA to break the law and let you do it, which is great.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, so I just deal with all that. So basically, I'll talk to the couple or whoever it is that's arranging the event or whatever, and find out what they want. If they, I tend to customize the display as well sometimes because I don't fly smoke hearts in an air show generally unless I've been asked to do it. But that's pretty much a staple for a wedding display. Yeah. But people might want specific kind of like sets of maneuvers, or they want more low level stuff, or they want it to be further away so they can get better photographs with everyone in the background. So I tend to talk to people and find out what they want, and then design the performance to go along with how it would best fit with their event and the geography of where it is. So it's quite involved, but I love doing it. I just think it's fantastic.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. It's hugely fun, and there's no pressure either because nobody knows what you're doing.
Don't tell everyone, Laura.
Even at an air show, you've got other pilots and the show directors and things, and obviously a lot of the enthusiasts as well. They can all recognise when a Lomtrevac's turned into something horrible, or and it's she was trying to do something there and it all went horribly wrong, and people know. Generally at a wedding, nobody knows at all, so it's great. You can go, oh yeah, oh dear, never mind. I'll just draw another heart and they'll be happy.
It's all about the experience. I'm sure as long as they have a good time and it adds value and they love it, that's all that matters.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, 8 to 10 minutes of aerobatics and noise and smoke and stuff like that. I'd much rather. I know. I'd prefer that to a firework display any day.
I'm with you there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot going on. You've had a bit of a whirlwind aviation career, but what is your proudest moment of your flying career so far? Tell us that story.
It's a tie, actually, between just passing my skills test, because that was just such a huge deal. I mean, anyone that's learned to fly or is learning to fly will understand that feeling. And, it's just like, I am a pilot. The first solo as well. The first solo was actually that's probably even pips the skills test pass. That first time you're let loose on an airplane on your own, it's like, whoa, this is serious. And honestly, I'd say that's probably my proudest moment. Would be that first solo.
First solo.
Yeah, but second to that was my first airshow performance as well. That was something else. That really was. But it didn't quite pip the first solo though.
Is it a case of after your first airshow performance, like, I am an airshow pilot?
No. I'll tell you what. Even now, I don't. Sometimes I have to kind of smack myself on the side of the head to kind of make myself realise it. It's quite weird. I mean, when you're up there, especially when you're looking down on a big crowd, it's like, is this really me? Is this really me? Am I really doing this? Is this It's like, yeah. I don't ever want to become one of those people that's arrogant about this kind of stuff and that, I'm awesome, I'm amazing. I don't ever want to be one of those people, and I don't think I ever will be, to be honest. So I'm very much kind of, was that all right? Oh, did it look okay? Oh, I don't know. Oh, and I tend to be a little bit self-deprecating, I suppose, and sometimes that's not a great thing. But yeah, I mean, the first airshow performance was like, wow. that was terrifying and cool in equal measure. And then going and coming back in, landing, as it was a show where I got to land. It was at Welshpool, actually, my first one. And so everyone's watching you land. You think, oh, I hope I don't mess this up. I do a horrible landing. And you kind of and you're rolling back in, and everyone is stood up, clapping and waving. It was just like, what is going on? This is the most bizarre thing in the world. I've got 10,000 people clapping and waving at my landing.
That was the best landing ever.
I just did the whole thing. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm at an air show, aren't I? Wow.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you. Okay, so you've got a busy 2015 coming up. What are your future plans or aspirations? What's the future for Lauren?
Oh, the future. My big aspiration at the moment is to find a proper sponsor for the aeroplane. I need a logo on the top wing, really, and some financial support to get to where I want to go in the next few years. So that's my current mission. Is so if anyone out there fancies having their logo displayed to over 2 million people during the year, then get in touch. But longer term, I want to be doing more shows. Obviously, that's kind of my thing. I think the day I have to stop airshow flying will be a very, very sad day, and I'd just love to keep the aeroplane doing it. Just keep doing more and more. Beyond that, I'd like to end up flying something like an extra and going to the World Aerobatic Championships and getting back into the competitive flying a bit more as well. And just if I can, eventually end up going to the World Championships and seeing how well I can actually do against the best in the business. It'd be really, really nice to get back into that.
That's awesome. I love the way you're still, aiming high, and that's the way you've got to be. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't know how realistic it is, but how realistic was becoming an airshow pilot when I was 16, being as an engineering apprentice. It's it's not something you ever think would ever be possible. I've never had money, and somehow I'm here. It's like, oh, okay, you can make things happen if you want something enough and you're willing to commit and try hard enough. You find a way, and I think you've just got to keep aiming and keep trying and just keep being willing to do what you need to do to get to where you want to be. And I've always been quite dynamic and quite positive in that way. It can be a bit hard sometimes, but as long as you keep pushing, I think you can get to places. So yeah, I'm aiming high, but I don't think it's necessarily unrealistic. What might be, nice in the future is if someone wants to let me fly their Spitfire or something. That would also be quite cool. Be up for that. So yeah, just get in touch. Get in touch. Spitfire, Corsair, Hurricane, Mustang, anything like that. I'll be up for that. So yeah.
Fantastic. Definitely you've got to put it out there. If you put it out there, then it will come back to you. So good luck with that, and let me know how you get on. Okay, Lauren, this is my favourite part of the show. Welcome to the quickfire checklist.
Oh, God.
This is where I ask you a series of questions and you come back to us, the inspired pilots, with amazing and inspiring answers. How does that sound?
Well, I can try.
That's all we need. Okay, what is the best piece of advice related to flying that you've ever received?
Don't crash.
Sounds amazing. That's a very good one.
It's a pretty good one, to be honest, because crashing is universally bad. That's probably, just I think it was my first couple of flights once I bought the single seat pits, it's like, just don't crash it. That's all we can really say. I was like, yeah, all right, okay, give it a go. Yeah,
thanks for your advice. Okay, do you have a favourite internet flying resource that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Do you know, for all my time I spend online, I don't think it's really anything specifically aviation related that I would recommend. I'm massively into social media, and actually there's such a huge variety of good groups on Facebook and communities on Twitter and Instagram that are just so keen on aviation and such, full of such enthusiasm, people with such knowledge and such amazing stuff. I would actually have to say that social media for find any of the good aviation feeds, and there's some great stuff out there.
Excellent. Can you share one of your personal habits that you find useful and believe contributes to your flying success?
Probably not picking my nose. No, I don't really do that, actually. I have always been quite into being fit. My dad used to be a marathon runner and a competitive cyclist and stuff like that. And I think maybe some of it rubbed off a little bit eventually. So these days I spend a lot of time kind of physically training, because during the show season, not only are the aerobatics quite physically grueling, psychologically, the flying long distances and being in the aeroplane for hours on end is very, very wearing mentally. And I actually find being physically fit means that my brain stays in gear for far longer when I'm up there. So yeah, I do a lot of fitness work. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I ride a mountain bike as often as I possibly can. I used to be big into rock climbing. And I just try and be as fit as I possibly can before we hit the show season. I think more pilots could take that kind of idea on board. The fitter you are, the better your brain works, and the greater the capacity you've got for dealing with problems, because you're not dealing with your own fatigue so much. So I think fitness is definitely that one thing for me.
That's a great piece of advice there. Thank you. I think I know the answer to this one, but trikes or tail draggers?
Oh, stupid question. There's no point in having a wheel at the front. What is that for? Really, what is that for? Now, I learned to fly on tricycle wheel aeroplanes, but frankly, these days, I just don't find that. I don't know what it is. There's just something more fun about having the wheel in the right place at the back. It's just something. There's a little bit more challenge to it, I suppose, and I just like that. And obviously, tail wheel aeroplanes tend to be a bit lighter than their tricycle versioned cousins, so they tend to sort of handle a bit better as well. I'm definitely a tail wheel pilot, but I will fly nose wheel if I have to.
Overwheel, like that. Can you recommend one aviation related book?
Yes, I will highly recommend the most fantastic read that is the book 𝗣𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗃 is the Hunter. I can't remember the guy's name that wrote it, but that is just Google it. It is the most fantastic read it's written by a guy who was a transport pilot, sort of end of the war, kind of flying Dakotas and things, and just the early kind of pioneers of airline flying. And some of the stories he tells in it, it's just how they survived the stuff that they were doing. It's just mind-boggling. But he writes it with such fantastically entertaining style. It's just absolutely cracking book. Highly recommend it. Go read it.
Excellent. I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes. What is your favourite non-essential but essential to you technology gadget in the cockpit?
Oh, do I have to pick one?
Unfortunately, you do, yeah.
Oh no, this is so hard.
Number 1 and 2.
I'm a total techno geek. I mean, I'm actually an electronic engineer by training, so I am very much a techno geek. That said, the aeroplane is very minimalist. I don't really go in. I'm not into all this glass cockpit stuff at all. I just don't see any real need for it. I would say 1 and 2 are tied, really. GoPro cameras, because I do a lot of filming and a lot of stuff, because I show off for a living, and you've got to film that kind of stuff, haven't you, really? It's kind of obligatory. I've actually got a sponsor that supplies all my cameras, so I've got far more GoPros than you ever really know what to do with.
How many GoPros on at any time?
At the moment, tends to be either 2 or 3. It may up to kind of 4 or 5 during the season, because I've got a couple of new stuff, a few new bits coming, and we're making some new mounts to put things in fun places, because there are only so many places you can stick them on a pit special, because it's all fabric. It's not like sticking it on an extra or on a Cessna where you can just stick on the little sticky things and the way you go. You can't do that on a fabric aeroplane, so you have to be a bit clever. And kind of we thankfully both of us have got both myself and my partner are engineers, and we happen to have a workshop, so we can make things, which is great. But yeah, I think it will probably be 4 or maybe even 5 that I'll run at some shows this year. So hopefully at least one of those angles won't be of my face.
Fantastic. So we're going to see some awesome footage of Lauren this year.
Yeah, but number two gadget on my list would have to be my iPad mini that, believe it or not, I do use in the world's smallest cockpit. It sits on my knee. I've got like a knee board thing that my other very kind sponsors at Airbox have given me, and I run their navigation software, which, even though they give it to me for free, I would happily pay for. Genuinely, it is a fantastic bit of kit, and it means that I can have my map on my knee and not have to fold it. and it tells me where I am. So none of that nonsense of trying to like, oh, I'm on this, I'm drawing lines on the map or trying to find out where I am and looking outside and unfolding it and getting it stuck. And none of that. It's on my knee and it's got a big green blob of an aeroplane where I am.
Fantastic.
Yes. For transit flying, it means there's no stress. It's great. I love it.
Takes the stress out of transit flying. Awesome. Okay, this is my favorite question. If you had a time machine and could go back in time and meet your younger self just before you're about to start your flying journey, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself, Lauren?
Don't be so stupid. Choose a cheaper hobby. I guess I'd just kind of take myself to one side and say, look, whenever you feel despondent or finding it hard or can't afford it or whatever, just keep going and don't give up, because eventually you'll be able to do cool stuff and you'll enjoy what you're doing, and you may even have a lot of people looking up to you and telling you that you're doing good. So you just got to believe it yourself.
Fantastic. Inspired Pilots, you can find all the links to all the resources and everything else we've been talking about with Lauren today by going to inspiredpilot.com and search for Lauren in the search bar to find the show notes for this episode. Okay, Lauren, listening to your journey and the stories you've shared have been very inspiring. I almost want to at least have a trial aerobatic lesson myself, so that could be on the cards this year.
For sure.
For sure, yeah. Can you give us one last piece of guidance for our audience of Inspired Pilots? Share how people can get in contact with you, and then we'll sign off.
I guess the message I want to get across to people the most is that you don't have to be special. You don't have to be elite. You don't have to be even all that talented. You don't have to be rich. If you want to do something, you've just got to work hard, try hard, and don't give up doing it. I mean, I'm not particularly talented. I'm certainly not rich. And look at me, I get to draw stuff in the sky in front of thousands of people and get paid for it. It's great. But I've got there because I've worked hard and because I've been convinced that I could do it. So it's all about just believing in yourself. If you want to go and get your instrument rating, but you think it's going to be too difficult, you don't know until you actually try. So go and give it a go. If you want to learn if you like the idea of flying tail wheel, but think it's going to be really, really, really hard and you're never going to be able to get out of the Cessna 152, just go and have a go. Find a good instructor who will help you and encourage you and give you confidence, because you can do it if you want to. You just got to get out of your comfort zone. So yeah, that's my message, is just to go and try and just commit and work hard, people, because there's some fantastic things out there if you just go and get them. Any more information anyone wants from me, I've got a website, which is lauren-richardson.com. I'm a big user of Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find me at Lauren Airshows on all three of those. And if you want to ask me any questions, just ping me a message. I always get back to people.
Fantastic. Okay, Lauren, I know you've got a busy 2015 ahead of you, so good luck with everything you're doing. Thank you for being so generous with your time and joining us on the show today. On behalf of the Inspired Pilots, I'd like to say thank you and speak to you again.
No, thank you, Marvin. It's been an honour being on.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Inspired Pilot podcast. Don't forget to head over to inspiredpilot.com. That's where you'll find the show notes for every episode, links to all the resources mentioned, and much, much more. Wherever you are on your pilot journey, get ready to be inspired.